So please help me welcome on stage Beck, Vukosi, Martin, and Kerry.
All right. Where should I sit?
Should I sit in the middle? Should I sit over here off to the side so I can referee?
Yeah, this referee thing.
These are actually my lunch
it's
partners,
fun.
so we've had some practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Afternoon,
We're
everyone
mid
again.
piece now.
Good. How's everyone doing? Full? Still hungry? Who needs seconds? So we can order that. Okay. Yeah, this is working. So maybe let's take our seats. Okay. I don't know where to sit. So, Kerry and Wukosi. Apparently, the food was so good that we had to discuss how well, just trying to get to my agenda quickly, the rebuilding of the retail sector with technology is coming along. You guys are leaders in your respective organizations, and we spent the whole morning and a bit of the afternoon talking about digitalization, AI, and data. Maybe my first question would be to you, Kerry. What do you guys do for this digitalization in terms of disrupting the current status quo and enabling organizations to onboard digital retail?
Wow, okay, so this actually feeds back to one of the questions that was asked in your talk, or one of the challenges that was positioned about digitization in retail. And I think it was the gentleman who was sitting over that side talking about the spaza environment and how there is actually no digitization in that environment. And interesting that you ask us that. So impression, we are an e-signature solution, so just take that in mind. And I'm just going to quickly set the scene and explain that e-signatures, while, you know, in your mind you're probably thinking, okay, I'm read through my contract and I'm going to apply my signature and that is my consent. It's so much more than that. And from an impression standpoint, specifically in retail and specifically in the African environment, we actually have USSD. We have the global patent on USSD as a recognized form of signature mechanism. Now, how that enables digitization in the retail environment and specifically in the spaza environment, I'm going to give you guys a use case. Example is when retailers, for example, large beverage distributors, provide the fridges into the retail environment. They're delivering those fridges and they're giving over a piece of paper that needs to be signed by someone to say, okay, cool, we're putting this fridge in your environment, we're going to stock this fridge and it's branded and there is our marketing opportunity. And what we've been able to do with our USSD signature mechanism is we've been able to make or allow those retailers who don't have a laptop necessarily, who maybe don't have a smartphone, maybe they don't have a smartphone, maybe they do have a basic device, we are allowing them to actually participate in a consent-based ceremony. And what we are then enabling is those large beverage distributors who are putting a piece of valuable hardware in an environment, we're allowing them to get a digitized contract, a digitized piece of evidence that they can go ahead and store, and that can then be audited and can offer them the technical compliance that they need, the proof that they need, in a completely non-technical environment. So that's just one use case example about how, in our case, e-signatures can actually be the spearhead of digitization in an environment where there is no access.
Yep. Good. Thanks for that. So, I mean, again, you linked it very nicely to the question earlier on from the floor regarding spaza shops. So, in other words, there is a role for these guys to play in. The impediment may have been, how do we do it legally?
Access, yeah.
And you guys are solving that particular gap.
Yes.
Cool.
Participation, yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, back to you guys. I mean, you are the data fundi in the room. We believe that you make us believe things that we should not be believing, but somehow you're able to do that. So, I mean, we are rebuilding the retail sector with technology. From a data point of view, what does that look like? Where is the data being consumed?
So maybe to take a step back, and I think it's nice that we're all looking at Nick and saying he asked quite a nice question to you earlier on. We can only rebuild successfully if we drive inclusion. I think that's the essence of it all, given the dynamics of South Africa. You can only exist so successfully and so sustainably if we succeed in addressing the bigger social ills. And through inclusion, we try to do that. So I believe that actually whichever sector you are in, if you are not thinking that way, then you are not approaching it right. And to his question earlier, what I truly believe, and it speaks to this data and AI for good that I'm also passionate about, is that how do you get that economy? And it's huge. I mean, the estimation, if you look at the numbers of the money flowing there, is significant into this mainstream digitalization wave so that they can benefit from all that it comes with. Firstly, I think the big players have got a role to play here. If you take the example of some of his customers or clients, one of the key things that you can, for example, consider is that the behavior that we're seeing, and in townships, funny enough, where I disagree with him, is that there is a ShopRite, there is a Boxer, or you save, or whatever it is. And this way, actually, these people are buying their groceries at the end of the month. But to my behavioral science demonstration earlier on, even here in the room, I can assure you that 90% of you always understate the volume that you buy. It's a behavioral, you always think you've got enough, but actually you'll run out. And you guys, yes, you go back to your Woolies to add that one pack of meal or of milk or whatever. And for these kind of customers, though they may, or usually they are starting at Boxer or ShopRite, when that starts happening, which always happens and we never learn, it's a behavioral science thing, they now go to the spaza shop. So it's the same customer that you are saving with two behavioral sort of dynamics. And the role that then the big retailers that are seeing this and understand you are a family of 4 or 5 or whatever, can already now push insights to that spaza shop on how they can better structure and optimize their stock, inventory or whatever, to serve the very same customer, because the insight that the bigger one has helps this one. And you can now bring them in by enabling them with that insight and getting them used into some sort of a technology or digital platform to start doing that, and start branching that to broadening the role that your Yokos and whatever have breached to get more context to these transactions by creating that simplified platform. And now you have revolutionized the entire supply chain of this township economy, and overnight you are digitizing them and bringing them in. And then the rest of the other smarts can start coming in later. And I think there's a responsibility for the big retailers to support these, the smaller players in townships that way. And that's where, when you put a digital cap of co-opetition, it also demystifies the fact that they must even see each other as competition in the first place.
Okay. So, I mean, listening to you, one question that popped into mind is, there's a responsibility both from the big players and also from the enabling channels to kind of make it possible to rebuild the retail sector, right? And technology being the core topic, from what you're saying, maybe let me ask you to clarify a little bit there. What is the role there? Yes, the organizations have got a role socially to play, but technology, what is its role there?
The role is more from a point of view that the bigger players already have these platforms and modernize, and they're modernizing. They've got highly skilled people like you that keeps them fresh in these areas to understand how to stay ahead. Whereas the younger players don't have that muscle, that stamina and they've been fully gotten accustomed to benefiting from distributed technologies like your cloud. So being able to hold their hand and introduce them simply and in a beneficial way, cost effective or even at no cost for them, that's where the technology muscle that the big players have benefit the young ones, or the newer players. Yeah.
Thanks. Maybe come back to you then, Kerry. If you just listen to what he's saying, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of agreements that need to happen, right?
Yeah. Cooperation.
Cooperation, right? And we spoke earlier about partnerships that are quite significant as well. From your experience, I mean, perhaps also context savvy around South Africa as well, where are the gaps? Why is it difficult to get these partnerships going? What is it that the retailers that have not thought of moving through technology are missing in this whole thing?
Sure. Okay. So, first of all, I'm going to challenge the idea that the retailers, the large retailers, can necessarily lend expertise to the new guys. Right? What I think that the new guys have an advantage. I think that they are building from scratch. I think they don't have any legacy. I don't think they have anything to hold them back. I think that they have the opportunities, much like the South African economy and much like South African entrepreneurs. They have the ability to lay green fields, if you will. And that's where I think platforms and cooperation are the most important. For example, we have some partners who are here from MTN Chinosis. Now, MTN is a data. Let's work in a very traditional view of them. They are a data business. They enable people to operate on the internet, if you will, through their devices. But MTN have seen that data's only as good as what you can use it for. So they have, we're in their marketplace, so that's why I mentioned it, and that's how I know about this project, is that they've got this platform called Chinosis. Chinosis is aggregating all of the utilities that partners have in the environment. So they've got some e-signatures with us. They've got, I don't know, the Cisco guys can join, or the ERP platforms can join. They can consume some Amazon resources from a data storage point of view, and the small guys can come in and leveraging the economies of scale of cooperating in an environment where, I don't know, do you guys know Parcel Ninja? Do you guys know who Parcel Ninja are? They did cloud warehousing. So what they did is they said warehousing is too expensive for small e-commerce retailers, so we're going to get the warehouse, we're going to run it for you, and we're going to let you take a piece of space the size of a shoebox. And so they aggregated that demand. And so Chinosis is a platform that's doing something similar, where they're aggregating all of the utilities that you might need. And it's the same as all of the people who've spoken today. Each and every one of them is a subject matter expert in what they do. They are not the subject matter experts in retail, in a spaza shop, in Dobsonville. They are not those experts. Those guys know what they need to do. They just need to be capacitated. And so I think that it is the aggregation of the economies of scale with the small players that will allow them to do things their way, and removing the heavy lifting that is made available to them through the subject matter experts. You understand?
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, and what I like about what you're saying, the aggregation, is that even in this conference, we're actually talking about a subset of real retail. So actually, the full retail for me is fully understanding my entire share of wallet or spend. So it starts with my bond, my vehicle, my medical aid, my everything, because either way, what I will buy online, it's based on my disposable income after having taken care of some of these responsibilities. So now when you understand the power of ecosystems and platforms and that aggregation, it gives you even richer insight to my propensity to purchase a certain item. Because if I'm a 1,000 rand earner, 100 rand spent for me represent 10%. That's a very important information. To say, then 100 rand spent for me, it's expensive compared to you who's earning 20 grand. And so that aggregation brings a different perspective that allows you to then target your customers and personalize, to your point, bit differently.
Okay. Let me swing it a little bit differently, right? Earlier on, we were also talking about the different generations that we have in society. Your Gen Zs, your baby boomers, and all that, right? Now, technology is something that seems to speak more closely to the newer generations. What are your thoughts around the baby boomers, the older generations? What are we saying about them as we digitize this retail sector? Anyone, if you can answer.
Yeah, I think obviously they are not adopting it at rate and scale as the younger ones, but I do think that most of them have, to an extent, come to on board. And what you are seeing is that I think someone said for the first time we've got 5 generations alive at the same time. So that is already a complexity to say, how do you endlessly adapt to that in how you build, right? Because we like standardization. It simplifies your life when you do your solution architecturing, right? So being able to understand that I need to be adaptable and customized for this generation, and it's probably a service layer that we often ignore. I mean, we did, don't kill me, an experimentation on our side because our system performance was just taking strain. And we said, nah, Martin is 50-year-old. He's always been used to waiting for 3 seconds and a little thing saying responding before it opens a page. But these kids, 3 seconds, the app doesn't open, they jump to the next one. So we just deliberately slowed yours so that we can make this one faster. But and both the customers were happy, none of them complained, but did you try to be the same to everyone? That's where you lose that personalization that you spoke about earlier on. You gotta personalize even at this level, because that comes at a cost, the speed and resilience, you know, all the cloud benefits if you're in the cloud. But even then, you can play around with this kind of things to account for the different behavioral traits of the different generations in how you service them. And you gotta be built for that.
Kerry, would you agree? Is there something there to get your Gen Zs to be on the same level as your baby boomers, but still using technology?
I think retail is where it's at in terms of really piloting this understanding of meeting your customer where they are. Not only because you guys have the volumes, but because you have that spread, like we've said. And it's about not viewing automation as a challenge to the workforce's job security. It's about understanding that you got to meet the Gen Zer who doesn't even want to talk on a telephone, let alone interact with a human, and meeting them where they're at. Give them self-checkout, but have the people standing at the self-checkout who can help the person who actually just wants to have a conversation. I think that retail, honestly, is the melting pot where we can really start to understand that the person who is doing your checkout now can actually be better utilized in an interpersonal relationship, upskilled and really actually focusing people on people, machines on people who don't want anything to do with people. And I think there's so much, retailers, guys, there's so much opportunity, please.
And it's the experiences. I mean, to a point, I'm in healthcare, and one of the things we emphasize is the care. So you can automate the life out of components of healthcare, but imagine if any of you've got a loved one that just went in for a surgery, and yes, performed by maybe a robot, which is more accurate, doesn't, because of years of drinking, make a mistake. But say the unfortunate happens and your loved one doesn't make it, and the robot walks out and say, I'm sorry, but he didn't make it or she didn't make it. So it is to her point understanding to say we mustn't lose sight of the power of humanizing experiences and remembering that these things will always, in one form or shape, work in an augmented way. And we are just saying that the human beings of the future are going to be digital workers that are able to work with technology to give better services and experiences.
Cool, thank you. Well, I've got my lovely signal that says that we are out of time. But if I may, as your closing statement, ask you this question. How far is too far in terms of rebuilding with technology?
I mean, what are we talking about? Ready Player One here? Isn't that the future of retail? No, I'm kidding. How far is too far? Wow. I don't know. Tube feeding.
Tube feeding.
Yeah, when we're not cooking our food, I think, when food is not food, then I think maybe for me that's like I'm out.
Cool, thanks. Vukosi?
Limitless possibilities, yeah. And I think this, to my point, can become the sector that powers everyone else, because it's all about, I'm getting this income, how do I spend it? And that's where retail should start, when they start thinking retail.
Okay. Well, thanks to both of you, and thanks to you guys for watching and listening. Don't know what's next, but thank you.